Welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast for people who are struggling with infertility and trying to conceive, and who are facing more obstacles than options when it comes to having fertility testing or treatment in their home countries. Alongside other experts, I will share, educate and empower you on your journey and help you to learn more about going abroad for advanced fertility testing and treatments like IVF and egg donation. I'm Emma Haslam, your host, now mum of one, and the go-to expert in fertility treatment abroad. Since the birth of our son in 2018, I have made it my mission to make fertility treatment more informed, transparent, accessible, supported and affordable for more people. And I help people just like you to become unstuck, to find a best fit clinic that truly meets their needs, and to have fertility treatment on their terms and timescales so they can achieve their dreams of growing their families. And I'm here now to help you too. Be sure to check out the free resources in the show notes for more help after listening to today's episode. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the IVF Abroad podcast with me, your host, Emma Haslam, and my special guest, Rachel Sherriff. Now, I know that some people will know Rachel, but for anybody that is new to you, I'd love you to introduce yourself in your own words, Rachel, and tell people a little bit more about how you came to specialise in fertility acupuncture and more about the Fertility Suite.
Of course, Emma. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'm Rachel and I'm a fertility acupuncturist, and I run a set of clinics now called the Fertility Suite, and we have 6 fertility acupuncture clinics throughout the UK. And I also teach other acupuncturists how to be the best they can be at fertility acupuncture. And yeah, like a lot of people who work in this space, Emma, I came to it through my own experience with fertility. So I struggled to get pregnant myself, had a history of struggling to conceive, loss, and eventually IVF. And I'm really lucky that I had my son after the 3rd round of IVF. It's my little miracle. And also, as with most things in life, it's about timing. I got offered to take redundancy from my job at the time, and I thought I'm going to use this opportunity to retrain and do something to give back. And I guess I kind of felt that all of that couldn't have been for nothing. And I wanted to do something to help support couples going through what I had been through, essentially. So I retrained to become an acupuncturist. I kind of did sort of general practice for about a year, always kind of knowing that I would want to specialise in fertility. And then I met an amazing lady called Nava Carmen, who is one of the UK's best fertility acupuncturists. And I did a lot of training under her. And I then decided that I was only going to see patients for fertility. And then the clinic has just grown. And it started off just me in my home clinic. Yeah, and we've now got 6 clinics throughout the UK. And I'm just really passionate about everything I do. And I really love doing this, coming onto podcasts to talk about how we can help people, because I think fertility is complex and one size doesn't fit all. And there are so many options out there, which is great, to have those options. There certainly were less options available when I was trying to conceive. So I kind of think we're in a really good place with fertility, where in terms of there's people who've got options.
I love that. And isn't it interesting how many people following their own kind of struggles with trying to conceive end up going to work in this space to try and help others, which I just love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, right, have been through this. And I think it's such a sort of personal and emotive journey that, having been through it yourself, you have that slightly different view on how you can help people and what they really need.
Yeah, I think the fact that you can actually kind of get it and then hopefully say the right things to people and not say the wrong things to people, and just to understand something because you've been there yourself.
Yeah, language is everything, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So when and there probably isn't a typical, but when somebody comes to you, like, what do you typically see in clinic? Where are people usually at in their fertility journeys or their trying to conceive journeys?
Pretty much everyone, Emma. So we see patients who have maybe only been trying for 6 months, but they just want to do as much as they can to support their overall health and well-being and their fertility. Sometimes people that have been trying for what I would call sort of falling into that, like, we need to start doing something sort of bracket. So kind of like a year plus, and maybe they've had some initial investigations and they're being told on paper that everything looks normal. All the way through to people that may have had, recurrent miscarriage, recurrent unsuccessful IVF, and they're not getting the answers they need, and they're just being told to just keep trying, it'll happen. And they're exhausted, they're at the end of their tether with it. They really don't know where to turn and what to do next. We also support same-sex couples who might be using assisted reproduction techniques. Anyone who needs a bit of support and help with their fertility. Within our clinic, we do also see women who maybe suffer with endometriosis or polycystic ovaries. They're maybe not quite ready to try and conceive yet, but they know that those things can make sometimes trying to conceive a little bit more difficult. So they're trying to do as much as they can in advance to optimize their fertility, which is great. Like, we're all for that. So we see everyone essentially.
A real mixture, and obviously people at different kind of stages of their journey. And you touched on something there, which is obviously part of this episode, which is people coming to you when they've been told that all looks normal, keep trying, there's nothing wrong, or, they're told they have unexplained infertility, like that's a diagnosis in itself. So many people are told these things. So obviously I have my own take on this from, clients that I've worked with and what they tell me they feel like when they hear these things. But from your experience, how do your patients tell you that they feel when people are saying things like that to them?
I think unexplained infertility is a term that is dished out way too easily by doctors who, what they actually mean is it's uninvestigated, like the right investigations haven't been done yet. And it's a phrase that can leave you feeling like there's no hope. Like if someone says it's unexplained, that, having had that diagnosis myself, it makes you feel completely lost. And it also drives you to want to get the answers, because a lot of couples that are going through this, and you probably hear this, Emma, but they will say to me, I knew something was not right. I knew, my gut was telling me, my instinct was telling me. Like patients that are being told it's unexplained, they're saying to the doctors it's not unexplained, and they're still not able to get the answers. The tide is turning, but it's still a battle for some couples to get those answers. And yet it leaves you in a place of hopelessness, essentially.
Yeah, and you and I have chatted about this before, and on your podcast when I came on, we talked a lot about this, didn't we? And I think we will both die on this hill when we say that unexplained means unexplored or not explored enough in the right places. And it's too easy. It's a lazy, almost like diagnosis, I think, that is given out when it's not a diagnosis. And I think, like you said, the tides are beginning to turn. And I think because there's more conversations being had around it, people are learning more about it. Because when you're at the beginning of your fertility journey, you kind of you have to become your own expert, which is sad in a way, isn't it? But we kind of put our trust in doctors, and we're not saying not to do that, but sometimes you do have to push back and ask questions. And I know people who I've worked with who've come to me and said, when we were right at the beginning of our journey, we kind of thought that was the diagnosis, and we were like, okay, well, that's awful, but that's what we have. Not realising actually that there were other things that could be looked at because they weren't properly supported by the professional who gave them that diagnosis in the first place. And then, like you say, they go away feeling hopeless, like it means that there's nothing else that can be done. And it's just simply, not true. And it makes people feel awful.
Yeah. As a patient, when you go to the doctor struggling to fall pregnant or struggling with recurrent miscarriage, you expect to be offered all of the options available to help explore that. What you don't necessarily understand as a patient, and I was there, so I don't mean this in a patronising way at all, if this is a fault of the system, but what you don't understand is that there are very specific guidelines about what the GPs and NHS consultants are able to do, and those are ultimately cost-based. So when you go to the NHS for support, you will, your support in terms of the emotional support will vary, but really what they can do on paper is very structured, and there's not much wiggle room with that. You're only going to get certain things, but you don't know that as a patient. You think when you go to the doctor, they're going to do everything possible to help you get to the bottom of why you can't conceive, and it's just not the case, sadly. So like you said, you have to then take on this role of investigator, ordering fertility tests, doctor, trying to work out where these answers are yourself. And then actually after you might start to get some answers, putting all those pieces of the jigsaw together and trying to work out what to do next, it's an absolute minefield.
Yeah, completely. And absolutely. When you're right at the beginning of your journey as well, you might not even realise that, like you said, that the doctors, actually, that there are limitations around what they're doing. And because you're not told that, then you think, okay, they've said all appears normal. And sometimes I think that can waste people's time because they can think, okay, well, we'll keep trying for longer and then nothing's happening because there is something else going on. And I think a lot of people, I have a lot of clients who, probably like you, Rachel, who are told that they've got unexplained infertility. And sometimes it's that the male factor side of things has not been looked at all. But, what I think should be happening, like I understand there's some limitations, many limitations with the NHS, and I love the NHS, but I feel like people should be told, but maybe GPs don't know that these are just some initial baseline tests, but that there are some other options that are out there, but you'd have to explore them privately, even for people to have that knowledge. Because as I get people coming to me and saying, we just didn't even realise. We just thought when our GP said everything looks normal, we took that as he or she's a doctor, and we just carried on, and we feel like we've wasted time. And that's horrible, because I think the limbo part of trying to conceive is hideous when nothing's happening, but also you don't feel like you're necessarily actively able to do anything to support yourself, or you're not getting support from other people, and you're just in that limbo state. I think is the worst bit, or it was for us.
Yeah. But it's also not just about, I completely appreciate what you're saying, but it's actually not just about limbo. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning. We actually really need to be aware of people's ages, because when you are younger, you have options and choices because you are naturally more fertile. Now, we know at the moment the birth rate is declining. Like, that is a proven statistic. And we know that couples are not trying for a baby until later in life. And we can't avoid the fact that as we get older, we don't have as much chance of a healthy pregnancy at 40, 42 as we would have at 20, 22, or even at 30, 32. So by not giving people that information and that initial doctor's appointment, you're wasting time, but that could be critical time for somebody. If you're 38 to 40, you don't have necessarily, we have to look at every case individually. Some people are more fertile than the average person for their age, but the majority of people, they don't have this time. And not only are you putting someone in limbo and the emotional, stressful frustration side of things that comes with that, you're actually damaging and reducing their chance to have their family.
100%. And I can empathise with this as somebody who, went away, lost a huge amount of weight, when actually weight ended up being nothing to do with why I couldn't conceive. And then going back and being like, I'm ready, I can have IVF now. And then them being like, oh, actually, the rules have changed again. But if I lived a few miles down the road, we'd have got IVF. So I wasted 2 years of my fertility, and also, of being in the emotional side of it as well. So like you say, it's the emotional side, but it's a time critical side for people as well. And I think that's really missing from the conversation when somebody is saying to somebody that their infertility is unexplained. They should be saying, in my opinion, through the test that we can offer, if this is NHS, or even if it's a private clinic, through the test that we can offer you, we can't see any issues. However, these are a limited set of tests. There are options for you to go to a specialist in this to explore these things, because unexplained means unexplored. And, just giving people that information, which I think is missing from the conversation. And, I see it's not just the NHS. I see people who have been to a private clinic, and really that private clinic isn't the right clinic for them. But instead of them doing the right thing and being a good human and saying to people, do you know what? You need a specialist clinic in recurrent miscarriage, in unexplained infertility, whatever it is. They don't do that. And the poor person at the other end of it, or people at the other end of it, who think that all IVF clinics and fertility clinics are the same, are not given that information, and it just really lacks transparency. And I just hate it. I just think it's so wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that they should be saying as part of that conversation if they're delivering that news to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's GP is often their first port of call, right? So I don't think perhaps GPs realise the amount of responsibility that is on them at this point of someone's fertility journey, especially if they are in the older age bracket. Excuse me. It really is a responsibility. to
Yeah,
be
100%.
having these conversations. And, yes, nowadays we have got things like podcasts and lots of different experts in all different areas of fertility kind of getting this narrative out there. But, ultimately lots of people will go to their GP to start off.
Yeah, 100%. And we don't know what we don't know. And as we get further along our journey, we get to know a lot more things, but we should be given this information up front, shouldn't we?
Yeah, 100%, Emma. I couldn't agree more. Like, information allows people to make educated choices.
Yeah, 100%. So for anybody who's listening who might be skeptical of acupuncture or unsure what acupuncture can do to help as part of their trying to conceive journey, how would you explain it to people, what its role is and isn't?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has a really clear place to support people with their fertility, but it's equally as important to understand the limitations around acupuncture as well. So on a very basic level, acupuncture calms your nervous system. It works on regulating your nervous system. And as an acupuncturist, we're just nudging your body to do what it should do naturally. We are the messengers. Now, there is some evidence to show that when you have acupuncture around embryo transfer, it has improved the birth outcomes from acupuncture post embryo transfer. We think the mechanism of that is from improved blood flow to the pelvic area and the reproductive organs. If you translate that back to natural fertility, and it's very hard to get studies into natural fertility, most studies in fertility generally are done within the controllable setting of IVF. But, if it's helping IVF outcomes, we can draw some conclusions that if it's improving blood flow to the pelvic cavity, we can assume that it is going to support fertility in some way, shape or form. Now, one of the key indicators of improvements in fertility outcomes is improved blood flow to the follicles. We know, for example, that when a follicle has better blood flow, it produces better progesterone. You can see that on Doppler scan. So we know that this blood flow is really important. Having your body in a calm state, like your nervous system in that what we call like rest and digest and out of fight or flight, can also help with your hormones. So cortisol is almost a bit like the hormone governor, and your cortisol output at varying times throughout the day is really important to your overall hormone balance. We use acupuncture in the clinic alongside what the client is doing themselves. For example, you could have all the acupuncture in the world, but it won't outdo a poor diet or a poor lifestyle. So we're always encouraging our clients about things they can do to support their fertility outside of the clinic. Acupuncture, in my opinion, if you have blocked fallopian tubes or you have scar tissue within your uterus or something physical or structural, a polyp or a fibroid, acupuncture alone is going to be very, very difficult to have an impact that would improve your fertility using acupuncture alone. Now, the way we work within our clinic is when you come in for an appointment, we're screening you for these things. So we're asking you the right questions, and we've got a lot longer with you than perhaps your GP would have. Our initial appointments are 90 minutes long. So we're going to be spending quite a lot of time digging into your medical history. We're going to be screening you. We're asking you lots of questions about things like your menstrual cycle to really understand whether there is a risk of any of those things I've mentioned, and putting the pieces of the jigsaw together. We're definitely going to ask about male fertility. Has a semen analysis been done? And then we'll create our treatment plan to support your fertility with acupuncture. But at the same time, if we think that you need a referral to a specialist because you've got some red flags for other things that might be going on, then we will do that at the same time. We can still work on regulating your menstrual cycle, for example. Acupuncture has been shown, certainly within our clinic, to really support people who are having anovulatory cycles or maybe a short luteal phase. These areas are areas where we often see really good improvement with acupuncture. And if you have a healthy, regular menstrual cycle, then we know that we're getting you in the right direction towards, hopefully, a healthy pregnancy, as long as we're looking at all those other things that may impact that. For example, you could come for acupuncture every day of the week and be religious in everything you do. But if there is a male factor fertility issue that is undiagnosed, we can't help you. So there is lots of things. Fertility is never as simple as you would be led to believe if you looked at a lot of things on social media or you spoke to a lot of people, or, it really annoys me, and I'm going to go onto a bit of a soapbox now, which I'll try and avoid, but, you read these things online about the key to your fertility, or, you can't get pregnant because your negative mindset is telling you, like, all of this stuff is just so damaging. And what we try and do within our clinic, and certainly there are lots of reputable acupuncturists out there practicing fertility acupuncture, is just to be really aware of what our role is in terms of signposting people for the right support and being aware of our own limitations. But many of our patients will go on to have a healthy pregnancy. Some patients will fall pregnant after a couple of sessions of acupuncture. Some patients may fall pregnant after 3 months of regular acupuncture. Some patients, it may be that they end up having IVF and we support them through that. Some patients, it may be they end up needing further investigations. They can still come for their acupuncture. We can support them through that. And then we get some answers and we treat things that then mean that they either fall pregnant naturally or they might go on to have IVF. So we are supporting people through all parts of that journey. So, yeah.
And that's very different, isn't it, to going and having a general acupuncture session? Hugely different.
Yeah, I think, look, there's lots and lots of amazing acupuncturists out there. And just because someone is not saying they are a fertility acupuncturist, it doesn't mean that their acupuncture is not going to help you, or it's no good, or that it's not going to help you fall pregnant. Acupuncture is a whole system medicine. It's holistic. So any acupuncturist, whether they're a fertility acupuncturist or not, will be looking at your body as a whole, and what they do may be effective, the same as any other fertility acupuncturist. But when you see a fertility acupuncturist, what you're getting is someone who has done extensive training. They're doing ongoing CPD. They have a general natural passion and interest. They have also supported lots of other couples previously. So you're getting that all-round support more than you would perhaps with someone who is having a more diverse client base and they're, seeing people that coming for other things. I've done that myself, and it just means that you can't focus on fertility as much as you would like to in terms of your overall sort of clinic mindset and training, those sorts of things.
Which makes complete sense, doesn't it? So when it comes to the sort of unexplained infertility side of things specifically, would you say then that the part of it that links most to a fertility acupuncturist support is around that holistic but specialised sort of look at, everything? So of course you're going and you're having the acupuncture, but you're also asking lots of fertility related questions and also referring on for other things that could also support that person or that couple. Would you say that's where, as well as the physical acupuncture, that it kind of helps with the side of unexplained infertility, would you say? Or
it depends what the issue is, Emma, in all honesty.
Okay.
So, for example, acupuncture has been shown to be as effective in women who are not ovulating as ovulation induction medications such as Clomid or Letrozole. So if someone is coming for acupuncture and the reason they are not falling pregnant is because they're not ovulating and they don't realise, which is actually way more common than you would think, it's possible to have a menstrual cycle and not ovulate, then yes, it may be that after a couple of physical sessions of acupuncture and nothing else, or regular treatment for a month or two, they may fall pregnant naturally. If the issue is there is something else going on, i.e. something physical, structural, male related, then yes, we can treat you with acupuncture and we can support as much as we can in terms of your cycle regularity, the blood flow, your nervous system. But then the other side of it is going to come from that other expertise and that ability to screen you and signpost you to the right people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you for explaining that. So you talk about the importance of the nervous system. For somebody who is listening and maybe doesn't understand, including myself, about the importance of the nervous system on people when they're trying to conceive, can you explain why it matters so much to have a regulated nervous system when you're trying to conceive?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, for a lot of us day to day, our nervous system is poorly regulated, and that's a lot of life nowadays. I think people are much more aware of things that have been really shown to support the nervous system. So things like meditation, acupuncture, breath work, all of those sorts of things have been shown to really calm the nervous system. And you can even get devices and things like there's a Sensate device you can get nowadays that you put over the vagus nerve. There's all these sorts of things. So your nervous system regulates your hormones, and your hormones are dependent on it. Now, some of that is also dependent on really simple things like your circadian rhythm. So whether you're getting daylight first thing in the morning, that will help set your cortisol output for the day. But if you're constantly in that fight or flight, so if a lot of fertility patients actually, believe it or not, and this is a whole nother huge subject, are in a state of trauma when they've had complex fertility journeys, recurrent miscarriage, recurrent IVF failure. This is something we see a lot, and that people are in this really it's a state of trauma, but whether it's recognized and treated is a whole different matter. But the body holds on to this trauma, and you can see it in patients. So signs of sort of either, you can call it all sorts of things, nervous system dysregulation, dysregulated cortisol, trauma. The body will often show signs of this. So signs of anxiety, poor sleep, palpitations, sometimes signs of inflammation. So things like skin issues, digestive upset, someone's ability to cope day to day. There's all these different signs. Now, again, there's lots of ways you can address this and other things that come into it. But when someone is on the couch having acupuncture and we pop a needle in any part of their body, we're affecting the local nervous system. And that local nervous system sends a message to the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord. And from there, we can ask your body to nudge itself back into a state of balance. So that our job as the acupuncturist is to diagnose you from a Chinese medicine perspective and then place our needles where we think is going to give your body the best nudge. And most patients will fall asleep on the couch. We often see patients, after you've popped a couple of needles in, their body will just let go. And something you can actually physically see sometimes, the body actually completely relaxes and they go into this sort of, I wouldn't even call it a sleep. It's like a state of deep rest, deep relaxation. And it's actually often better for you than sleep sometimes, that state of deep relaxation. And doing that on a regular basis. And you can achieve that in other ways as well. I talked about breath work, meditation. These are all ways where you can get your body into that state of deep relaxation. And it tells your nervous system, okay, we are back in the state of rest and digest. You can be calm now. When you're in fight or flight, your body is telling itself that there is an immediate threat, an immediate attack due. And you're living like on the edge, I guess, if you want to call it, ready for this attack. Everything's regulated, and it then takes attention away from your reproductive system, and your body will struggle to conceive. I'm not saying that everybody who feels stressed will struggle to conceive. It's not that simple. We're talking about a physiological response to stress, and people's physiological stress response can be quite different depending on lots of things, genetics, amongst other things.
I really love, though, how you are so upfront and honest about what acupuncture will do, what it won't do, its role to play, because you mentioned earlier, and this is one of my pet hates as well, there's so much BS and misinformation online and things that make people feel like this is somehow their fault if they've had a negative thought because they can't get pregnant. Well, that's why you can't get pregnant, because you've had a negative thought. Or clinics, people, influencers, talking nonsense, not declaring things like when they're taking money from fertility clinics and saying this clinic's the best clinic since sliced bread. And it just drives me insane. Like, there's such a lack of transparency with some people out there. And I think it's really important to bring people onto my podcast who I know and trust to speak the truth, because, we shouldn't have to. People shouldn't be lying to people. This is people's lives. And I just think integrity always wins. But I just think with this topic, this is important stuff.
Yeah.
And, you get some people who are like, snake oil sellers in this industry.
Oh, yeah. I can't bear it,
it's
Emma.
awful, and I hate it.
Yeah. Do you know, whenever I have this conversation with anyone, it always reminds me about a particular patient who came to us, and we didn't realise initially, but we found out through kind of like signposting and screening that she had extensive uterine scarring, so that the walls of her uterus were adhered together. She was never going to either fall pregnant naturally or if she did, be able to carry that pregnancy to term. It was extensive, and that was proven on a scan, and it needed surgery. And I remember saying to her after she'd had the consultant appointment, this needs surgery. All the acupuncture in the world is not going to undo this. What would you like to do? And she said to me, I fully understand that, Rachel, but there is absolutely no way I am not coming for my acupuncture regularly, because the support you give me and the fact that you were able to put me in the right direction to get that diagnosed tells me that I am in good hands, and I want to do as much as possible so that after I've had my surgery, I will be in the best possible position to try to conceive again, and I know that you will be able to support me with that. And it just always sort of reminds me that somebody doesn't always get what you think they're going to get from the treatment. I was actively saying to her, acupuncture will not help you get pregnant in this instance. And she said to me, I still want to come. So who am I to then turn around and say, I can't help you? I was obviously helping her in some way, shape or form that she felt that she still wanted to come. And I always think back to that. As long as we're being honest about what we can and can't do in that moment, then absolutely anyone can come and see us.
Yeah, 100%. It's about just being honest. And then if somebody decides that they do still want your support, because as you've kind of described, it's not just the role of acupuncture, it's everything else. It's the hand holding, it's people's nervous systems being kind of reset. And that patient has decided that with the information that she's got, she's still happy to come and wants to come and is getting something from it. But it's when people aren't truthful. And I think about this a lot, and I think to myself, are these people who've not been through a fertility struggle, and is that why they're not being truthful? But then some of these people have, and I think, how can you, when you've been one of these people?
No. We have to be evidence-based in everything we do. Like, I can, as a holistic practitioner who studied acupuncture for 4 years at university and was very much theorized, and acupuncture involves the study of ancient text, and a lot of that is lost in translation, and you draw conclusions a lot of the time without actually having the evidence. But when you're practicing day to day, you have to be evidence-based. Your patients deserve that. Like, you can't be saying you can do things that you can't. And the good thing about fertility is that the evidence changes on a constant basis, which, although can be frustrating for the patient, it means that we're still getting the information we need to move further. And it is a really fast moving area of medicine. It is something that throughout our clinics, we make sure we are on top of. Like this morning, we've had an updated training session with a male fertility specialist to find out what the latest changes are. We're always on stuff like that. But yeah, you've got to be evidence-based. You have to be.
Yeah, or if you don't know, or you're not the right person, people need to say that, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if somebody is struggling to conceive, or maybe they've just been told they've got unexplained infertility, when is a good time, would you say, for somebody to start acupuncture for fertility?
There isn't really a bad time. It would depend on a few things. So, for example, if we're talking short term, like where in your cycle, that doesn't matter. If you're thinking you want to try and start falling pregnant tomorrow, then you can come tomorrow and start acupuncture. Like, we adjust the treatment according to where you are in your cycle. If you are in the bracket of being above 38, you can absolutely come and see us for acupuncture. And in fact, I would say the large proportion of our clients are above 38. But we will, at that same time, we will be looking at, is there anything else going on? Like, we don't want to waste, we talked about it earlier, don't want to waste time. There is no wrong time to have acupuncture. And a lot of our patients we see throughout early pregnancy, I think there's this dialogue where, I'm pregnant now, so I can stop my acupuncture. Well, if you've got a history of miscarriage, we recommend coming weekly in early pregnancy, and we will do everything we can. Again, we're going to make sure that we're on top of any signs of anything going on. Yeah, just supporting that blood flow, keeping your nervous system nice and calm, and just having that space with someone to talk to. Pregnancy as well, like later in pregnancy, the second trimester, third trimester. Again, it goes back to just what you're going to get from it. Like, if you feel like that's the only space you've got once a week or once a month to come and switch off and calm your nervous system because you're anxious, which being anxious in pregnancy is really common when you have struggled either to struggle with loss. Yeah, you can come at any point. And then some patients actually come back. We have a lot of patients that come back for C-section scar work. So acupuncture can be amazing around C-section scars to just help with the healing process. And you actually really can see it. Sometimes you can get like puckering around scarring, and it can visibly change throughout the treatment. And we help the scar tissue to sort of lose that fibrousness and that tightness and help the tissue relax. So yeah, some patients come back, even after they've given birth. So yeah, there isn't a wrong time to come.
And you're right, a lot of people, particularly if they've struggled to conceive, then go on to be quite anxious in pregnancy. I mean, I was exactly the same. Lots of my clients are the same, and it's no wonder. And obviously, acupuncture can play a role there as well, can't it, in terms of the kind of anxiety side of things as well. I'm amazed about about what it can do for C-section scars. That's amazing.
It's amazing. We have in our clinic, one of our practitioners is a specialist in that area, so she tends to see a lot of our C-section clients. But yeah, it is really amazing. But look, I think we need to normalize like feeling anxious in pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's really common, common. And because the majority of our patients have struggled to get pregnant or struggle with loss, I'd say probably 99% of them are anxious in pregnancy. Like, we get it, right? It is normal.
Yeah.
And it's about accepting it and going, okay, what can I do day to day, manage that? What tools have I got in my box? And for some people, that tool might be acupuncture. For other people, it might be guided meditations. For other people, it might be going for a walk with their dog or seeing their friends. Like, everyone's different, right?
Completely. So for somebody who's never had acupuncture before and they come to you for a fertility acupuncture session, can you explain like what they can expect?
Yeah, it can be a bit daunting, right? If you've never had acupuncture, so many people say after that first appointment, well, that wasn't what I was expecting, which always makes me laugh. But I guess as a practitioner, you kind of think, well, what were you expecting? But again, it's completely normal. So when you come and see us, you will come, first of all, we offer like a free 15-minute call so that you can just have a chat. I tend to do the majority of those. I'll just have a chat with you. And again, I'll start that screening process. Like, is there anything that I would recommend you do first before coming? Do we need to perhaps just get something that may be flagged and checked first? But 99% of the time, we're happy to get people started ASAP. And you can just have a chat with me and work out whether you think you want to come and see us, because acupuncture is not right for everybody. You might feel that we're not the right fit for you. So that 15-minute chat is a good chance to just have a chat. Once you come and see us in that initial appointment, you're going to spend about half an hour, 45 minutes just talking. We have like a screening process, again, lots of questions. We're just going to have a chat. It's a very relaxed, informal chat. We're just starting to build the picture. And then we will pop you on our treatment couch. We have 6 clinics. They're all a little bit different, but they're all beautiful clinics. And the practitioner will start what we call like their Chinese medicine diagnostics. So they're going to have a look at your tongue. They're going to take your pulse. They will probably have a little feel of your tummy. And then they use everything your body's using or telling us. And they're going to use their notes that they've taken from you. And we're going to put those 2 things together. And we're going to create a treatment plan from a Chinese medicine perspective. So I'm not going to go into the fine details of that because I would just lose people, because it's a whole different language completely. But yeah, we use Chinese medicine tools to understand what might be going on with your body. And then we decide on an acupuncture treatment plan. We pop the needles in. They're very, very thin, fine. Most people, you'll get some sort of sensation, but it's not painful. And again, most people will say, I feel heavy, my body feels heavy. And that's that body going into that state of deep relaxation. In our clinic, we might use heat therapies as well. So we have a red light and then a heat lamp. We might use those over you. And there's lots of evidence around red light therapy and mitochondria, which is really amazing at the moment. And then we're going to put a weighted eye pillow over you. You're going to be all wrapped up in blankets as much as we can. The couch is heated, playing nice, relaxing music. It's a really nice environment. And then the needles are going to stay in for 20 minutes to half an hour. And that will be your time to just zone out. And then after the appointment, we will do you a written follow-up. And then our clients get access to like our online support hub, where we've got loads of different like support tools in there. We've got like guided audio meditations, all sorts of things, recipe packs, shopping lists that clients can access. They also get access, they get like a call with our nutritionist. So there's all sorts of things we do to support you. But the acupuncture side of it itself is very, very relaxing generally. Most people fall asleep.
Well, that sounds absolutely glorious, Rachel.
Oh, I tempted you.
Well, I did actually have acupuncture when we were trying to conceive. I didn't get that experience. I was listening to it thinking, that wasn't quite my
Yeah.
experience.
Well, maybe that goes back to kind of what we were saying at the beginning about what you get from a fertility acupuncture specialist. Like, we just know that a lot of our clients it's a big step for them to come in the door. They might have had four rounds of unsuccessful IVF, and they are sick to death of going into rooms, explaining themselves to doctors and asking questions. So they're already coming in a state of distrust, anxiety, frustration, often just mental exhaustion. So it's the little things that we do, the weighted eye pillow, the conversations, the narrative, the making you feel held and safe, that sound like very small things, but actually they're really important.
Oh, really important. And it wasn't that I had a bad acupuncturist. I think I went to, well, I know now, I did go to a general acupuncturist and they were absolutely fine. But all those little extras you've just been talking about, that would have been lovely. Really, really nice. And that's why I think with lots of things, you're best to go to a specialist in an area because they are the people that, know everything about or as much as they can about one area. So if you know that's an area that you need, I always feel like it's better if you can to go to a specialist. But it's coming back to people don't always know that there are specialist fertility acupuncturists. And it's no shade, like you say, to general acupuncturists. But that kind of the extras that you guys have thought about, I can see how that has come from probably you and having had your own journey, but also, specializing in this area. And I think those little things actually are quite big things when people are coming, they're nervous, and they're going through a lot. That no wonder they feel held. No wonder that lady didn't want to leave, and she was happy coming each week because. Aside of the benefits of the acupuncture, which are, evident from everything that you've said, the whole other side of it as well, that must be such a benefit for people. And to have that space for yourself on a weekly basis to calm your nervous system and to feel supported and relaxed and cozy and all of those things is super important, isn't it, in terms of the way that we feel as we're going through this?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, a lot of our team have been through their own fertility challenges, whatever that may look like. I won't go into details, but yeah, everyone has generally got some sort of further understanding of how it feels, which I think, again, just adds to that support, right?
Yeah, and even just being able to have a natter with somebody who gets it from a personal point of view as well, I think is, super, super helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I've got one more question for you.
Go for it.
Before I will ask you to tell people a little bit more about where they can come and can find you. In fact, now I've got two more questions. I tell a lie. So if someone's just been told they've got unexplained infertility, okay, and they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling like they've got no options, what do you want them to know?
Oh, that's a great question, Emma. And I think I want them to know that it's not unexplained. It's not unexplained. It's like you said, I think I said under-investigated, you said unexplored, which I prefer. So we'll go with unexplored. It's unexplored. And there are a whole host of people out there who can help you. It's a case of finding them. So people like knock Google and AI, like there's so much information that is actually helpful. What you need is then someone to help put things into context. So go onto Google, use AI, start doing your research, start reaching out to fertility experts that you find. There's so many on social media nowadays. Just check people's credentials that, make sure you're getting someone on your team who can help you, and make sure you advocate for yourself. Like if your gut is telling you something's not quite right or your instinct is telling you that, then you are going to be the one that needs to shout the loudest and stick your head above the parapet a little bit, which can be a bit exhausting. But sadly, it will get you somewhere. So yeah, it's unexplored. And if I had £1 for every one of my patients that's been told they had unexplained infertility, who has gone on to conceive and have a healthy child within a maximum of 18 months after that diagnosis, I would have at least £100 in the bank, easily, if not more. Like, it's really common to get that diagnosis and then to go on to have a healthy pregnancy. So please don't lose hope. Yeah,
and that is so true. It's same with, I work with a lot of people with unexplained infertility as well, and they go on to have a baby. It doesn't mean that that's it. And, it means there's something going on and we need to find out where and, linking with the right people, as you said, Rachel, to be able to help those people. So obviously we've covered loads of ground, and I hope people have found this episode really, really helpful. I found it fascinating, and it's always great to talk to you, Rachel. If you were to say to people, there's one thing I want you to take from this conversation today, one thing to remember, and you may have already just touched on it, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What would you say the one thing you want people to leave this podcast feeling or to have taken away in terms of the information that you've talked about on the podcast?
I would have let you put words in my mouth because I feel like we're on the same page, Emma. But yeah, exactly that. I think it's don't lose hope. I think the majority of people who struggle with fertility problems will go on to have a healthy pregnancy and start their family. But don't fall for the narrative of it's just bad luck, just keep trying. It will happen when you relax. Because that will lose you valuable time. Like, time is important. And I'm going to make the assumption that most people listening to this podcast are people that have struggled for some time and are maybe in the bracket of being above 38. And time is really important. So don't fall for that narrative and make sure you start doing your own investigations.
Yeah. And if you're with a clinic and you are, say, for example, having IVF and they keep doing the same things over and over again and nothing is changing and you're not getting the desired outcome and you're not getting the answers, then, it's about, I think, linking back to what you said earlier on as well about becoming our own experts. If that is happening to you as well, then it might be time to press pause, maybe looking for another clinic, looking for an outside person like Rachel, for example, to help. Because, I see this as well. I'm sure you do too, Rachel, where I've had clients that have had multiple failed cycles at a fertility clinic who have changed nothing, who just say, no, you're just unlucky. But they just keep doing the same protocol. They're not doing any tests. And meanwhile, these poor people are spending thousands and thousands of pounds on treatment that's never going to work because they just keep doing the same thing. And that's not their fault. That's the medical professionals, not doing their jobs properly. And, not only is there a financial impact, there's a time impact and then the emotional impact as well. And so if that is happening to you, then sometimes it's about, I think, pressing pause and thinking, right, we need a different point of view here. We need to look at what else might be available to us. Perhaps the clinic we thought was right for us isn't actually now right for us. And it's okay to change things.
Yeah.
You are the customer, you are the client, you are the patient. It's okay to advocate for yourself, like Rachel said, and to be able to decide actually to take things off in a different direction if things aren't working for you.
And I think ultimately, if you take a short pause, and by that we're talking like a couple of months, right? Providing you have some fertility and you don't have an exceptionally low AMH, taking a pause for a couple of months will save you more time in the long run, because we all know that, an IVF cycle with repeated frozen embryo transfers that eventually may not work will lose you a lot more time than taking a short pause to get the answers before you start that cycle, potentially.
100%. Thank you, Rachel.
No, thank you for having me.
It's been a really interesting conversation, and I really think that you will have helped a lot of people by explaining the role of a fertility acupuncturist, and especially in the area of unexplained infertility, because I feel like this is a huge area where, many people are told this, sadly, and then kind of left feeling like there isn't any hope when, as you've just said, that there is hope and there are options. So can you tell people where they can find you? I know obviously you've got some physical clinics, but also you do some of your work online as well, don't you? So I'd love for you to tell people where they can find you, also online as well, and where they can learn more about the Fertility Suite and the work that you do if they want to come over and work with you.
Yeah, sure. So the best place to start is our website, which is thefertilitysuite.co.uk. And on there, you'll find links to all of our clinics. So we're in Surrey, in Oxted, Hawley, Tunbridge Wells in Kent. We are in central London in Bank, Salisbury in Wiltshire. And then we actually have a clinic up in Scotland in the Borders in a place called Galashiels as well. And then we have affiliate clinics in Chelsea, Shoreham by Sea, St Albans and Essex. So we have lots of options to support you. And then I work online as well with lots of clients. But if you go to our website, everything is on there. You can find the link to book a free 15-minute call. So if you think, I'm quite like to work with Rachel and her team, or I'm not sure if they can help, just book a 15-minute call and we can have a chat and I can talk you through what your options are and answer any questions that you've got.
Super. And you're over on Instagram as well, aren't you?
Yes, we are. Our Insta handle is the Fertility @Fertility_Suite.
And you also have a podcast as well?
I do, yeah, the Fertility Suite podcast. So yeah, I have been a bit slack the last couple of years. I've just started recording series 3 after I think like a 2-year gap, but series 3 will be coming soon. And you can find that on all the usual podcast channels. It's just called the Fertility Suite.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rachel. So go and follow Rachel. Go and check her out. She's a good egg in the fertility world. Excuse the pun.
Thanks, Emma. I'm right back at you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. And until next week, I shall see you all soon. Bye. If you are facing more obstacles than options and want to learn more about how to overcome your fertility testing and treatment challenges in your home country so that you too can fast track to growing your family and on your terms, then check out my free training at yourivfabroad.co.uk/free masterclass. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and so that I can reach and help more people. Thanks for